the scope of services for their child in this particular school that they were used to in another school. So I think having a really full menu of offerings and identification of what's not going to be there is going to be important at the same time.
Deb, I may have made this up, but is there a way on the department's website to compare schools?
On My School Info?
Okay, I thought I'd seen that before, so how about we look at that?
So if you go to the, Kim, can you pull up the website?
Is it mysschoolinfo.org?
We're going through a forced reboot that we went through this morning.
Yeah, I just
So
did too.
live stream went down for just a couple minutes. It's back up, but now the other computer's rebooting.
So you
said no, you
actually meant no.
Yeah, I literally can't. Yeah, I literally can't.
Great.
A real life
If you give me
no.
about 2 minutes, I can.
I thought you were.
I was buying time while mine rebooted. It was just me. Okay, so
Info.com or
if you open up another browser, can you open up, see that little box up there and see if it'll let you open up, no, right here.
Oh, that one, yeah, that's where I was headed.
is that .org? Is it? I think that's what she was asking.
ArkansasEd.gov.
Okay.
ArkansasED.gov. And if you scroll down to the popular and helpful links, it's on the second row in the data box. It's the last item. So scroll down to the second row, maybe right there. Data, My School Info. My School Info allows you to really set your own parameters for an analysis of a school or to compare. Dr. Gosher, is it up to 5 schools? You can compare up to 5? In the comparison? And I think in the analyzer you can put up to like 25 indicators that you want to analyze on. So if you pulled up Little Rock, you can look at it either as a school or a district.
So where are you going into here?
So you can go school or district.
So Okay.
But you got to pick if you want school or
okay.
district. So you're in school, so you want district.
Okay.
And type in Little Rock. Click on Little Rock and then
Search.
Hey, Deb, we're back up.
okay, there she goes.
Oh. Okay, we were going to Little Rock
District.
District.
And I'll say the reason why I brought this up, because I was somewhat familiar with the website, but I think to your point, some of the information that you suggest to be added is not here. So I want to kind of, for us to see what was there so it can help what you were discussing that you would like to see available.
Yeah, that's what we need to know is we need to know what kind of information is important to parents. And just to also let you know that our office has posted out a link, I'll have to find it, asking for feedback for a parent-student portal that the agency is building to provide more information. But they're surveying to find out what people need. So this information would be helpful to them as well. Our Research and Technology Office.
Uh-huh, that's good to know. And they're doing it online?
Yes,
One thing I would like
all across the state.
specific data, some of the data that we received, and I guess I probably need to go back and get it exact, but there was some data we received from the OEP in their reports where they were talking about, as it relates to the charter schools and traditional schools in Little Rock, how the students perform in each as they enter and as they leave. I don't know if that data, apparently that data's already there because they put it in charts. So I don't know if I would like, if we're going to add to this, that's something that I would like to see added so you can see that comparison of how students perform. I understand, but I'm stating it. I want to verbalize it before I write it down. But you understand what I'm getting at, though, right? Yeah. And cohorts. All right. So I'm gonna go in there and maybe I can be anonymous lion. Let's just see what happens.
Start talking, we'll tell you what you are.
It's Gawara, too.
You're the anonymous hedgehog.
Who's the anonymous kraken?
Oh, is that you?
You know, that's really creepy. It was creepy to me when it happened to me. It's like Big Brother is watching you.
Yeah, I think the more specific you can be, then the better our questions can be when we come back to clarify. Can someone comment on facilities? Number 4.
Oh,
Oh, wait a minute.
facilities.
Did you ask?
Who typed who
Yeah,
put
I thought
facilities
so.
in?
I did not put that in. I have some thoughts on facilities. And I think there are several issues that need to be dealt with, probably not under the voluntary collaboration issue unless you're talking about actually sharing facilities and having a public charter school in a traditional public school building that has excess capacity. Or, I think there was a bill that was introduced and didn't go anywhere in the session that would give public charter schools first dibs on excess traditional public school buildings that were no longer in use or underutilized. That perhaps could be under voluntary, under some policy changes perhaps. I think the public charter schools had some concerns about the the perception of unfair treatment in terms of facility funding that came to public charter schools as opposed to traditional public schools in the Little Rock district and with many other traditional public school districts. You have issues of legacy facilities that you're dealing with, especially if you're dealing with declining enrollment that have got to be addressed. And then I think just in terms of the efficient use of scarce public resources, the issue that Mr. Curris raised about public charter schools renting space in private buildings over time without the public receiving any equity in that property. I think that is a policy issue that ought to be addressed somehow. And the whole issue of facility siting and a master plan for siting in the community so that we don't have opportunity deserts or school deserts like we have food deserts and banking deserts in underprivileged sections of the community, particularly east and south of University Avenue and 630. I think need to be dealt with from a policy standpoint by the department, especially as you're authorizing new public charter schools in the community. So those are my thoughts on facilities, probably not in the voluntary section, but more in the policy change recommendations.
And something that's in conjunction with that and just about everything else is there's the old saying that timing is everything. And timing really is important. As new charter schools are being approved at a time when the local districts are going through tremendous changes and pressure from the withdrawal of the last of the desegregation funds. And that's an issue that I've written a bit about in one of my recommendations, is to think about the sequencing of action. Were you gone when the bill passed to authorize purchase of empty buildings into the districts?
Or utilized? Did you leave the session before they voted on that?
I didn't. I thought it failed at committee. I don't know where the status of it is.
It passed.
It passed. It
Yeah,
passed.
it passed.
Okay.
Did everybody else restart? You just went?
Yeah, my computer just shut down too.
Okay, good. I'm always afraid I breathed on it wrong.
It'll time out on you if you don't.
Well, we're having technical
Other
difficulties. We rebooted several times today.
To go to the transportation issue on there, I guess my question would be to the colleagues is, what do y'all want to see in that, or any recommendations as far as the collaborations between the charter and the public on that issue? Because I've had parents raise that question to me of how they would like to see transportation in, if they did go to a charter. But I don't know how we would be able to work that out, but, you know.
We really haven't talked about it.
Right.
So what would they like to see?
They would like to see transportation. I mean, getting their kids from home similar to, and someone suggested to me that on bus routes, that they would just drive by, pick up, if they're going by a charter school, they could drop off the same kids at that school as well, just drop off the public school kids at the same time. But that's a funding issue, of course. Shared transportation. But that, that would be, a funding issue, I'm assuming.
Mary Perry is back there, so she can correct me if I'm wrong, but many of our charter schools offer bus vouchers for students that need transportation.
Okay.
On the city system.
On the city system.
Okay, okay. Is that all of them or just some of them?
Mary?
It's just some of those.
Some of them, okay.
In front of the older students, of course.
Is it possible to get a list of charters that do issue those bus vouchers?
We don't necessarily collect, oh, sorry.
Because I know that's gonna be a question that comes back up and over again, so I just want to be proactive on that, because I've already had some questions raised up on that.
We'll have to go back and look. When they make their application for charter,
Okay.
they're asked about transportation, and they put plans in there for that, or say they're not going to provide any transportation.
Okay.
So we can look through those and get that information from that section.
Well, I know you may not be able to answer that question today, but what would be the protocol, if so, on making it available for kids to ride those same school buses to go, or providing a bus pass? Can we look into that for later, possibly?
So that's up to the charter.
Okay.
It's for them to make their decision of what they need to do to
Okay.
entice people to come to them.
Okay.
Right, Mary?
That's correct. It's absolutely, it's a topic that comes up again and again when the charters are before the authorizer
Okay.
about whether or not they're providing transportation and how are they meeting the needs of students who might want to come to the charter,
Yes.
who don't have that, but there is not the providing transportation. It's not a requirement, so.
Yes, ma'am.
I think this is another item that could be added to the resource guide
Yes.
for families.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than having to go school by school and ask.
Yeah,
Do
just
you
put it
provide-
in the resource guide. Correct.
I think it also goes back to Jim's point about
Thank you.
the city having a plan for, and I love how Dr. Barth phrased it, the ecosystem of public education offerings in the region. We haven't pulled in anyone from the city board of directors, but I would think that they would be concerned about where we are in terms of, and not us as a group, but the area in terms of public education and these sort of issues that I'm sure they're hearing about. Am I wrong? Does the city board need to be involved in that kind of overall planning?
Ideally, yes. Back in the olden days when we actually did comprehensive planning and took all this stuff into account, that's something that would have been taken care of. Now the decision-making is split. The city of Little Rock, for example, does not even have a single comprehensive plan for the city, which
Right.
some of us
Chafe at.
chafe at. But this whole issue about facility siting and transportation and shared transportation resources are really good questions. Long-term, it is an issue for the department because the absence of transportation to charter schools gets to some equity issues. And you may be open to everybody, but if everybody can't get there or certain classes can't get there, then that gets to be an equity issue in the long term, looking at the, not school by school, but at the education ecosystem as a whole. And so if you did some kind of comprehensive siting plan, long-term plan for siting facilities, then a natural offshoot of that would be a coordinated transportation plan to get all children to those sites from all parts of the area.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
At the city's regular, there was an agenda meeting prior to the agenda meeting 2 weeks ago from tomorrow, I believe. Mr. Michael Poore, the superintendent of Little Rock School District, addressed the board at some extended length, and a number of parents were present because of their concerns about the emptying of 3 schools in the Little Rock School District, and the board was very interested. Their questioning period was lengthy, and I would encourage anybody that didn't get the drift of what was being spoken about there can go and watch the tape. I had to stand in the hall, so I heard Mr. Poore, couldn't see all of his slides and couldn't hear everything that the board said, and have gone back and watched the tape, and it shows the level of great interest that exists in so much in the community about our schools, and certainly underlines the acute interest of our city directors in what happens with our public school system.
So, in saying that, we're gonna, Ms. Verity, so you're gonna get with, put that to your agenda with the transportation issue, to put it in the guide. Can you do that?
Yeah, I think that's, sorry, forgot. I think that would be a an important piece of information that may not be readily available on the website that we looked at earlier. But that's the sort of thing that might be a deal breaker for some families. Better to know it on the front end
Oh, yeah, sure.
than to have to shop around or go asking a lot of questions. So I added that as one of the potential pieces of data that we would want in the resource guide. And that's what I'm calling it right now, but I don't know if that's appropriate.
I think that sounds like a really good title for it, or at least a working title. One of the things that comes to me is that as we kind of ping pong off one another and go back and review what we've learned from others over the span of time that we've been together, and things that come to us through the newspaper or the TV or whatever, it's like dropping pebbles in a pond, and they ripple. One of the things I'm very concerned about, and I've talked to our member Letitia about it, is what about parents that don't have ready access to computers? They have some language barriers, and that's why one of the ideas that I'm thinking that we might want to, well, I'm going to propose it, whether or not it goes anywhere. It's kind of a one-stop shopping center, and I envision, I'm so convinced that an educational cooperative is very, very important for Southern Pulaski County, Northern too, because one of the things that's got to happen when people coming together in collaboration, they got to get to know each other. They've got to see a reason for working together and have a way to begin to be comfortable in the proposition of working together. That's what I've seen in the times that I worked for the Department of Ed or other organizations that took me around the state, is that the cooperatives were just, the eyes, ears, nose, throat, heart of the county. And people became fast friends, and they were bouncing off each other constantly about ideas and having so many cementing experiences together. And collaboration came quite naturally. I'm very concerned about the emphasis on competition. I think it's debilitating. I think that it's dangerous, and it's just plain out undermining if we say that we want collaboration, then we need our community to quit stressing the competition, because partners are in a collaborative win-win situation, not a one-up situation. And that's another thing that I've written about, and what I haven't published in our document is that we just need to adjust the paradigm, and language, words mean a lot. And our local newspaper is constantly coming out with editorials that are promoting competition, the benefit of competition. That's for sport teams. In my opinion, there are spelling bees maybe, certainly wars, but not when you're trying to promote partnership. Collaboration means that there has to be deep knowledge, there has to be trust, there has to be an ease and confidence in the ability to work with one another. And one of the things I've said before is, what's in it for the public schools to cooperate with the charter schools? That's one of the things that the literature stresses over and over again. That's one reason that it's so difficult, is if they're lined out as each other's enemies, that's counterproductive. And I think it's going to be very important for leadership and management at all levels to watch the language. But where I started was, I remember one of the authors, you want a clean, well-lighted place. Well, you got to have a place for people to be able to come together to start to form the relationships. They're going to be foundational for moving forward on behalf of kids in the community. And that's what a co-op is for those who've ever experienced what happens in a co-op, everything can happen in a co-op, and everything does happen. Really electric things can happen. And there's why I'm thinking, well, maybe that's one place where we can have the one-stop shopping, where parents can go to find out about all of the opportunities throughout the area that's been designated. So that's my vision, and I think it's important for us to keep dropping the pebbles in the pool and let the ripples flow, because whatever we come out with, I think, needs to be catalytic for come, let us reason together. Let us dream together. And here endeth the lesson. I sound like a preacher. Sorry.
Do we want to go on to,
Whatever the role of the group.
okay.
I would note, before we move on, Chair, I just added a note. There was also some data we received from Dr. Arola in the Office of Innovation Policy at the very beginning about the how students were performing in charter schools as opposed to traditional public schools. I'm not sure the best way we can take your data and put it in something like a resource guide or even on the My School Choice, but I think that information is important, which showed that kids were progressing even better than people would think in some situations. So that was eye-opening to me, and I'm knee-deep into this, so I think it will be eye-opening to others as well.
I'd like to comment on that. So one of the things that Dr. Arola's data, I think, did for me was it just made the question of why families are choosing one option over the other all the more difficult to answer, which is why the first thing I typed in here was under collaborative efforts, and I do think it could be done with through a collaborative effort, is some kind of collaboration among the traditional public schools and the public charter schools to distribute surveys to families who, upon enrolling their student or upon leaving a particular school, to help us eventually get at the answer for that question. I don't know how beneficial it would be, but at least the data would be there. And even if there's not funding to analyze it at this point in time, it would be available to kind of mine for information later.
I was just going to add that as we've been going through ESSA stakeholder work and meaningful consultation on some of the deep topics that are part of the ESSA planning and consolidated plan, one of the things that keeps rising up is we will have indicators, we'll have more robust, we'll have achievement, but we will also have growth, we'll also have graduation rate. There's some requireds, but then there'll be additional information that's added into what goes into that support and accountability system to respond to ESSA. And in order for that information to really be used in such a way that it helps to move, or at least informs not just the educators who are working to improve what's going on with kids, but it would also be part of the reporting that helps everybody to understand what's going on in the school and where are the strengths and where are the areas where there might be a need for more growth. So that's been a theme in the conversation, has been how do we use reporting for increased transparency and understanding, meaning making about the information, because you do get a different sense of what's going on when you put growth and achievement together, as opposed to when you look at them completely disconnected from each other. So my hope would be that as we move down the line, that'll start to be part of a standard set of things that get reported. And it's my understanding that some of that comparative data is required anyway under ESSA for highlighting the differences, or not necessarily the differences, but just looking at the achievement among subgroups of kids, but also the charter school and any of the schools that those students are being drawn from. So some of that's going to come as a result of all the work that the states have to do in response to ESSA. But the data that you're talking about is the why, which is in some ways much more personal for many people. And I think the only way to get to it is if they have opportunity to give some of that reflection back.
But, I mean, my sense is that there are factors way beyond proficiency
Yep.
scores and growth in academics that are driving the behavior of the population in this region.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to be able to capture that somehow.
Yeah.
I understand that when families are confronted with that face to face, it's difficult to sometimes relate exactly what your concerns are, why you made one choice over another. I think anonymous surveys would be helpful
Yeah. I would
to
agree.
to help, and then just even if you can't analyze it now, you would have it somewhere, and you could take a look at it later.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Did we want to take like 3 minutes to follow up questions on anything and then move to the next on the agenda?
So we need to have a plan to pull this work together. I said we need to have a plan of how you're going to pull this work together so we can, by next meeting, be ready to kind of wordsmith the final.
Would somebody would like to volunteer to begin drafting the sort of the background of what got us here?
Dr. Barth, how about you? You're most familiar with that.
Again, I think it really is up to y'all. I mean, I'm as a member of the board. You know, y'all have been, from my perspective, y'all have been tasked with this work, and I will be part of the recipient group of your report.
Wow, that was awesome. That was well said.
I'm not punning. I mean, in fact,
I understand.
there have been about 3 times I almost started typing something back here in this as an anonymous aardvark or something, and I held back because I think it really is important that there be some notion of separation between y'all's work and the work of the board.
I'll volunteer to write the background after I've interviewed Dr. Barth to get the information
Okay.
with which I can put down on paper.
Certainly, I will give, I'll be at the meeting when y'all look at the final draft, and I'll certainly highlight anything that I see as inaccurate or off track. But I think it really is y'all's to take ownership of.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'd like to continue to kind of flesh out
I join whatever you're about to say.
oh, okay.
Go ahead, finish.
Great.
I just wanted to let you know you have one support.
Okay. So I'd like to take some time before our next meeting to elaborate on some of the suggestions that I've added to the document. And then some of what Antoine's been typing in is, I think, critical to any kind of resource guide. So just kind of nailing down what we would want included as part of a resource guide, nailing down what kind of information, and I probably need to take notes on this myself, nailing down what kind of additional information on things like disciplinary procedures and special education and that sort of thing. So I'll volunteer to keep working on that, and I apologize for not having done more before now.
Don't apologize, because that's gonna make me feel bad. But you did more than I did. I will say, before we talk about finishing this outside of here, I would like to have a little more discussion. We talked about Section A, which is the voluntary. I think Section B also merits some discussion among us here tonight before we leave. Section C, I think it's a little bit different, because that's the way I understood it. Probably a little more, well, depending on who you ask, whether C or B is more aspirational or not. But I think there are some ideas that we have talked about up until this point that relates to Section B that are worth discussing. And I will start that discussion at the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman.
Also, I want to say, we had some members that are out, and I want to give them the opportunity to chime in. So I don't want to go too in depth to this tonight to just say close, but maybe have another meeting next time, another discussion next time, and then come back. So to give them an opportunity to give their input into this.
So maybe I can send an email out and ask them to go ahead and get their recommendations
That'd be
put
good.
in, and I think, Mr. McKenzie, I'll be happy to help in any way. I think one of the things I could do is, I think we're pretty clear on the directions now,
Yeah, sure.
so I can start taking the directions off of the page. And I would ask that anyone who made a comment on the right side, if your comment's been resolved, click resolve, let it go away. If it's still burning, then we need to answer it.
Now, I think the important thing is for everybody to get whatever they want to say on the page.
Yes, sir.
And then it'll become easier to organize and then edit from that point.
I strongly concur. Just do a brain dump. Don't worry about how it sounds. Just get it down, then we can respond to it.
So do you want to set a timeline of when everybody would have their brain dump loaded on? And then give some kind of a timeline of when to revisit? Or do you want you want to correspond with me so that I can send that information out to everyone? Or you could send it out, say, hey, we're ready to do the next step.
I think we ought to try to get our brains dumped at least by April Fool's Day.
2 weeks out. What time?
You have done your taxes. I'm not. I can't. There's just no way.
Right.
I'll be honest.
Well, let's start by, you've already written some stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's get that on the paper, and then we can take it from there and
Okay.
And then if you have anything else, then just.
So
I will. Believe me,
So draft recommendations recorded by April 1st, and then you will go in and put some structure to it?
Yeah.
And then we'll send it back out to say, go in and add the second round?
I just understood that what I put down is a draft. It's not final. I'll get something on there, but I'm just in a horrible time crunch, and stress is starting to get to me.
Okay, so the timeline I have is all draft recommendations recorded by April 1st, and then Mr. McKenzie and I'll go in and kind of clean up some structural things, and then we'll alert all members to go back in and read and add details and clarification.
Yeah, and I would say not draft recommendations and comments or thoughts or just anything you want said in here, get it on the page, even if it's in rough form, and we can work with it from there.
April 1st is a Friday, is a Saturday.
Okay. Well, the Google Doc is open 24/7, 365, right?
That's just to let you know what day it is.
When would you like to meet again?
I'm doing my dump before I leave today.
You have some dates?
Maybe sometime after April 15th.
Yeah.
Actually, the 17th is the due date this year. It's going to have to be after 17th while I have my breakdown.
After 17. Anything after that? So, we look at the 24th, April 24th.
Yeah, no sooner than that.
The 24th, are you okay with that, Mr. Phillips?
I am going to, yes, I don't leave till Wednesday.
Okay.
You want me to text our other members that couldn't make it tonight?
Yes, sir.
Are you going someplace exciting?
Who, me?
Uh-huh.
I'm going to New Mexico to speak at a conference about transportation litigation.
That does sound exciting.
Cool.
Are you suing or defending?
I defend.
Okay, we're good.
Okay.
I have one other question.
Yes, ma'am.
How does red writing get into the document? Deborah doesn't even know.
Yes, I do.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Somebody made it red?
Somebody made it red.
Oh, okay. So what's the
Denise.
reason for making it red?
Denise,
Just to know who wrote it?
at the top, under the recommendation, and at the very top, Dr. Barth requested, do you know?
That's in, that was in green in mine, so I was trying to, that's in green. It's because I had it tied to, I just need to, that was just, yeah, I needed to resolve that. Now let's see what color it is.
Black.
There you go. That was me putting in a suggested edit instead of a comment. I should have put it in as a comment.
I just couldn't figure out the colors. It's driving me nuts.
You're not the only one who doesn't necessarily feel very proficient in this system.
Oh, I'm good. Misery loves company. Thank you.
And she had also asked on, under number 3, someone had highlighted the word charter.
Anonymous Crow highlighted charter. Of course, Anonymous Crow could have done that
Any reason anyone has it highlighted?
weeks ago.
That's not me.
Okay, we'll unhighlight it.
I will note for the record, Miss Edwards, who couldn't be here today, has responded via text and says April 24th works.
Okay. So maybe, I would say don't take that off, because maybe one of those, maybe Ms. Retta or Ms. Edwards had that.
We'll let them put a comment.
Okay, okay, all right.
All right.
We had number, is everybody good with that, everything? Okay. Going to the next agenda, consideration for next steps, but I want to see how we can table that until next time, if that's okay with Dr. Areola.
I think you guys have covered next.
Yeah, we covered it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Quite well.
And then we have the agenda for the next meeting,
April 24th.
April 24th. Next on the agenda is adjournment. If everybody's good. Any other questions?
I'm good.
Okay. Motion? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks,
Can I
Deborah.
sit here for a while, or y'all gonna kick me out?
We
How
want
much
you-
time do I have? Like 10 minutes?